I arrived at the house thinking it would just be a temporary place to stay, a quiet escape, a place to clear my head. But the moment I stepped inside, something felt wrong. Not loud, not obvious, just a slow, crawling uneasiness that settled under my skin. The house wasn't huge, but it felt bigger on the inside, the kind of space where the corners felt too long and every hallway looked like it stretched a little farther than it should. And then there were the doors. Too many doors. Not the usual bedroom, bathroom, and storage kind of layout. These doors looked like they were placed without any planning. One door was positioned barely a foot away from another, almost like someone added it as an afterthought. Some were narrow and tall, others small and square, almost child-sized. A few were painted over with thick layers of white, hiding whatever was underneath. One didn't even have a handle. It was just there. It felt less like a house and more like a puzzle someone never finished building. My uncle watched me look around, and his expression told me he knew exactly what I was thinking. He didn't smile, he didn't explain. He just placed a heavy hand on my shoulder and said quietly, "No matter what you hear in this house, don't open the last door in the hallway." I laughed awkwardly, assuming he was joking, but the way his voice cracked made my stomach tighten. I expected him to at least tell me why, but instead he turned away as if the conversation was already over. He looked tired, more tired than anyone I'd ever seen. His shoulders sagged, his eyes kept drifting nervously toward the hallway. And that hallway, it was the one part of the house that felt colder, longer, darker. Even from where I stood, I could see the faint outline of that last door at the end, different from the others, not because of its size or color, but because it looked like it was waiting, like it knew I was there. That night, as I settled into my room, one thought kept repeating in my mind. Why did this house need so many doors? And what was behind the one I wasn't supposed to open?
That first night in the house was supposed to be calm. I tried to convince myself that the strange layout, the too many doors, and my uncle's warning were all just quirks. Old houses make noises, right? But the sounds I heard that night weren't ordinary. It began with a soft tapping, not loud enough to scare me, just enough to pull me out of sleep. At first, I thought it was the pipes or maybe branches brushing the siding. But the tapping became clearer, more deliberate, slow, rhythmic, almost like footsteps. Not on the floor, not on the hallway, inside the walls. I sat up confused, listening. The steps were light, but not small, like someone walking barefoot, dragging their heels slightly with each step. The sound traveled from one corner of my room to the other, as if someone was pacing behind the plaster. My breath caught in my throat. I pressed my ear to the cold wall. For a moment, everything fell silent. Then I heard it again. Not footsteps this time, but breathing. Deep, steady, controlled, but too close. Too close to be anything human. I whispered, "Uncle?" hoping to hear his voice on the other side. Instead, the breathing stopped. Completely. And then the footsteps started again, but faster now, moving along the inside of the wall, like whoever or whatever was in there had suddenly become excited. The steps traveled toward the hallway, fading for a moment. But then I heard something worse. A soft scratching sound right beneath my bed. Slow at first, then impatient. It felt like the house wasn't creaking or settling. It was waking up. Fear crept up my spine, but I forced myself out of bed. I opened my bedroom door and peeked into the hallway. That's when I noticed something strange. Every door in the hallway was still, except one, the last one, at the very end. The same door my uncle told me never to open. It looked slightly ajar, just enough that I could see darkness on the other side. My heart pounded. That door was locked earlier. I checked. I remembered the sound of metal clicking in the afternoon when my uncle had made sure every lock was closed. But now, it was open. Like something inside had been listening, waiting, and had just stepped out. I whispered his name again. No answer. Only the footsteps behind the walls, moving faster now, following the hallway, drifting toward me. At that moment, I realized something terrifying. My uncle didn't warn me about the door to scare me. He warned me because he knew something lives in this house, and it doesn't stay behind the walls at night. I stood in the hallway staring at that last door, the one my uncle warned me about. The house was silent now, except for the faint echo of footsteps fading inside the walls. But the silence didn't feel comforting. It felt staged, like something was holding its breath, waiting for me to move. Earlier that day, I had paid extra attention to that door, not because I wanted to open it, but because it looked dangerous. It had 3 heavy locks on it, a thick deadbolt, a rusted latch, and a long steel bar that slid across like it belonged on a prison cell. I remembered watching my uncle lock each one, using both hands, pulling hard as if he didn't trust the door to stay closed. And the way he avoided looking at it, as if even eye contact might wake whatever was behind it. But now, every single lock was open. The deadbolt hung loose. The latch was bent outward. The steel bar lay on the floor, as if it had been pushed from the inside. I froze. Doors don't unlock themselves. Not like this. Not silently. I stepped closer, my heart beat loud enough to drown out everything else. The air around the door felt colder, unnaturally cold. My breath came out in thin, shaky clouds. The door wasn't wide open, just barely cracked, wide enough to show a sliver of blackness behind it. Blackness so deep it looked thick, almost like liquid. I whispered, "Uncle?" Part of me hoping he'd appear suddenly and tell me it was all a misunderstanding. But the house stayed quiet. Too quiet. Something else bothered me. Something small, but horrifying once I noticed it. The doorframe had fresh scratch marks on it. Deep ones. Long ones. The kind you'd expect from someone trying to claw their way out, or something that didn't want the door closed again. My phone flashlight flickered as I aimed it at the marks. And that's when I saw the worst part. The scratches weren't just on the frame. They were on the inside of the door, too, as if something had been dragging its nails down the wood. Slowly, patiently, waiting for its chance. My throat tightened. Instinct told me to run, but something else, curiosity, maybe stupidity, pushed me forward. I reached out and touched one of the scratches. The wood felt warm, too warm, like someone had touched it just seconds before. Suddenly, the door moved. Not much, just a small shift, a gentle push, like something on the other side leaned against it. I stumbled back, nearly tripping. For a moment, everything went still again. Then, from behind the door, I heard it. A soft exhale. Slow. Heavy. Human. But not quite. I knew then that someone or something had been standing behind that door long before I stepped into the hallway, not waiting for me to open it, waiting for me to notice it was already open. And that realization was worse than anything behind the door.
When I finally pushed the crock door open, I expected to see a normal room. Maybe dusty, maybe empty, maybe just old storage. But what I saw instead didn't look like it belonged to the house or to this world. The air changed the second the door opened fully. It felt heavier, thicker, like stepping into a space that had been sealed off for too long. And the temperature dropped so quickly my skin prickled. A faint red glow bled up from somewhere deep inside. Not bright enough to light the room, but enough to show the outline of a narrow, unsettling passage stretching forward. The moment the small, ancient door clicked open, something inside me broke. Because doors don't open like that. Not slowly, not deliberately, not with the quiet confidence of something that knows it doesn't need to force its way out. Because you'll come to it. The crack widened only an inch, but it was enough to let the darkness spill out like smoke. Not actual smoke, just a shadow so thick it looked like it had weight. I stood frozen, every instinct telling me to run, but my body refused to listen. The air inside the corridor shifted, turning colder, heavier, almost metallic. My lungs tightened, as if the passage itself was squeezing the oxygen away from me. Then I heard it. Not the whisper this time. Not my stolen voice. Something else. Breathing. Fast, shallow, desperate breathing. Coming from just beyond the doorframe. Something was standing right on the other side. Close enough that I could feel its breath hitting my skin in faint, icy pulses. My flashlight trembled in my hand. The beam flickered, cutting in and out as if the darkness was swallowing the light whole. For a second, I saw the outline of a hand slide forward. Long fingers, too long, with joints bending at strange angles. Its nails were cracked, sharp, pale like old bone. The hand hovered in the doorway, hesitating, almost shy. Then it reached out, slowly, touching the floor like it was testing the world outside for the first time. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard it hurt. The breathing grew louder, faster, more eager. Suddenly, the door swung open wider, not violently, but smoothly, as if pushed by something unseen, something that had waited so long that it no longer cared about hiding itself. A cold gust rushed over me, carrying the smell of damp earth and old stone, the smell of something that had been locked away for too long. The darkness pulsed again. And then, a shadow stepped forward. Not a creature, not a person, just a silhouette. A shape twisted into something almost familiar but horribly wrong. Like someone had taken a human form and stretched it until it became a question mark. I stumbled back, but the corridor behind me felt like it was shrinking, funneling me toward the open door. My breaths came short and fast, and the walls pulsed with faint vibrations, the same rhythmic pattern as the breathing behind the door. The shadow tilted its head, slowly, curiously, as if studying me, deciding something. Then it moved. Not walked, not stepped, slid. It drifted an inch forward, and the temperature dropped instantly. My vision blurred, my ears rang. A pressure built in my skull, like the house itself was whispering inside my mind. The shadow extended that long, bone-like hand toward my ankle. Its fingertips grazed my skin. And the touch was the worst part. Not cold, not sharp, not painful. It felt familiar, like someone I knew, someone I trusted, someone I had lost. I tore myself away, adrenaline exploding through me. My body finally responded. I turned and ran as the shadow surged forward with a sudden, violent lunge. As I sprinted down the passage, the small door slammed shut behind me with a deafening crack that echoed like a gunshot. The red glow flickered, the walls trembled, and behind the door, something screamed.
The kind of scream that didn't belong to anything human. I didn't look back as I ran. I didn't want to see if the shadow had slipped through the door, or if it was already crawling along the ceiling above me. All I knew was that the corridor felt different now, like the walls were pulsing, alive, breathing faster than I was. The moment I reached the main hallway, the house changed. It woke up. At first it was subtle, a low vibration under my feet, as if something massive was shifting deep beneath the floorboards. Then the doors, every door, began to rattle. Not just shake from the wind, not creak like old wood. They rattled violently, like dozens of fists were pounding from the inside, like whatever had been trapped behind them wanted out. I froze, my back against the wall, my chest heaving. One door slammed so hard it cracked the frame. Another door bulged outwards, the hinges groaning as though something threw itself against it. The scraping behind the walls returned, but this time it wasn't a single pair of footsteps. It sounded like an army crawling inside the walls. Dozens of limbs dragging, hands slapping inside the plaster, fingernails scratching in wild, chaotic patterns. The entire hallway echoed with whispers. Not one voice, not two, hundreds. Some whispered my name, some begged, some laughed. A soft, broken laugh that sounded like someone learning how to mimic human emotion for the first time. But the worst whispers were the ones that sounded exactly like me, repeating my own breaths, my own voice, my own panic. I took one step backward, and the floorboards beneath me exhaled. A long, trembling exhale that made dust roll across the floor, like the house itself was trying to breathe through my footsteps. Behind me, a door swung open an inch. Not the forbidden door, a different one. One I had never seen open before. A pale hand shot out, thin, stretched, trembling. Its fingers brushed the air like it was searching for my leg. I stumbled away, heart pounding in my throat. Another door slowly cracked open on the opposite wall. Not burst, just quietly eased open, like someone inside was peeking at me. Then another door opened, and another, until the hallway was full of open slivers of darkness, each one hiding something that breathed, whispered, or shifted. The house wasn't a house anymore. It was a hive, a nest, a trap. And all the doors, the ones I thought were useless, pointless, misplaced, were occupied. Something slammed into the walls from inside, hard enough to make the frame shake. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. The whispers grew louder, more desperate, more hungry. It felt like the house wasn't just awake. It was angry. Angry that the small ancient door had been opened. Angry that something had stepped out. Angry that I had witnessed it. My vision blurred. My throat burned. A cold, crawling presence moved across the baseboard, sliding toward me like a shadow trying to take shape. Then from the very end of the hallway, the place where the last door stood, I heard a voice. Not my voice. Not the whispers. My uncle's voice. Faint, shaking, terrified. He said it once, then again, more urgently, "Run." That was enough to break me out of paralysis. I sprinted down the hallway as every door burst open wider, as hands, shadows, silhouettes, and shapes spilled out like a nightmare trying to escape its own pages. The house roared, a low, guttural roar that shook the floor. I didn't stop to see what was coming out. I only knew one thing. Whatever woke up in that house wanted me to stay inside with it. Forever. The scene begins with you stumbling out of the hallway. Your chest is tight, your breathing uneven. The second door you discovered is now shut behind you, but this time you didn't close it. You know the house is rearranging itself, reacting to you, and that thought alone makes your knees weak. You lean against the wall and suddenly notice a framed photograph. Strange. I'm sure this frame was never here before. It's dusty, old and slightly crooked, as if someone placed it in a hurry. When you wipe the glass, your heart drops. It's a picture of your uncle, standing exactly where you're standing, right now.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.